Hello ladies and gentlemen, Matt the Editor here, and welcome to another edition of my Who Reviews. Now before I start the review, I'd like to make a quick note about episode 1. Now, I managed to watch the episode again after I did my review, and I started to like it a little bit more. There were some moments which I thought, oh, that makes a lot more sense, and there were some moments which I thought, oh, actually that was a lot better than the first time I watched it. But my points in my review still remain the same, but I appreciate it a little bit more than I thought. So I finally came to a decision to give The Woman Who Fell to Earth 7 out of 10. I apologize if I didn't give it a score from last week. It's because I need more time to think about it. But now that's out of the way, let's talk about episode 2, The Ghost Monument. Now, like a couple of other fans, I was really looking forward to this episode. I mean, I liked the look of the episode. I thought this is going to be an episode where we really kickstart the series, and with some really good visual effects, with some really good character moments, and some very good storytelling, and especially from Chris Chibnall, because even though I thought last week was a little weak, a little bit, it kind of lacked something, but it was still a solid, good story from Chris Chibnall. And since he's running this one again, I think we're going to get something very, very cool and very, very fun. Did we get it? I think the gang pretty much took the words out of my mouth in the episode. I'm confused. Totally confused. I'm way beyond confused. Before I get into what I thought about the episode itself, I'm going to talk about some of the good stuff first, before I get to what I really didn't think worked about this episode. First off, let's talk about the intro. I like that they actually start the episode into the intro. They didn't give us a prologue. They didn't give us, like a little setup before the intro came up. They just went straight into the intro. And honestly, I actually like the look of the intro. It kind of reminded me of the very classic intros of Doctor Who, with the first and the second Doctor's intro with screensaver effects mixed with the colourful effects from the John Pertwee era, mixed with 3D animation. It's actually a very nice touch. I especially like the vibrating effect that it sort of starts up. It's almost like it's sort of warming us up before it explodes into colours. My thoughts about the music still remains the same. It's a nice touch of the old classic mixed with the new. It's a bit weird that they included the director and producer in the credits. Kind of weird, but what you gotta do? But yeah, the intro, thumbs up. Okay, now as far as the episode goes, there were some very good small moments. I mean, okay, I'm gonna talk about the characters first. I mean, again, the only characters that stood out for me, in my opinion, are Graham and the Doctor. Graham is pretty much going to be the star of this series. I especially like how his relationship with Ryan is definitely about to grow. We didn't get a lot of it here as we kind of did last week, but I like how they both decide whether or not they should follow the pilot when they land on the planet. I actually like that he sort of stands up to the pilot to turn around and save their friends, even though he only just met them. And I think the scene that stood out for me with the two of them is pretty much when they're fixing the engine on the ship, and they're talking about how Grace would feel and what she would do if she was around, especially how they said, are you kidding? We're on an alien planet. How cool is that? Not gonna lie, that is the same reaction I would make if I was in the same position. I especially liked that in the end, Graham was the first person to speak out, that even though they are far away from home and they're trapped, they still have each other, and I actually quite like that the team agreed with them. Jodie, again, still pretty good. I don't think she shone as much as she did last week, since last week was her debut. But in this episode, I actually quite liked, that how she acts all serious and realistic towards Esper, the soldier. But then when she's talking to Yasmin, she turns nice and sweet, like, oh, everything's gonna be fine. And of course, there's that iconic shot where she steps out of the smoke and she said, "Sorry about the mess." That is so Doctor Who. But I especially like how she gives Graham a pair of shades that she might have borrowed either from Pythagoras or what was the name of the other celebrity? It's there on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember the celebrity, but I actually thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, everyone has talked about it, but yeah, the standout moment for me for Jodie is, of course, when she finds the TARDIS. When she discovers that the TARDIS is quite obviously the ghost momentum. The look she had on her face when she said, you can see a glimmer of hope in her eyes. There's no blinking, there's not a lot of dialogue. She didn't even ask questions or even mention that it's her ship to the villain, whatever his name was. But yeah, when she's thinking about the TARDIS, she is full of hope, which I think was the point of this episode. The episode didn't really clear that up for me, in my opinion. But yeah, standout moment for me is when she finally returns to her TARDIS, and especially when she steps into her TARDIS, and which by the way is a nice throwback to Patrick Troughton again. The famous quote, "Oh, you were decorated," but instead she said, "I like it." Kind of obvious that it was gonna go that way, but yeah. I also like the moment where Ryan asked if he can press anything on the buttons, and she said no straight away. That was pretty funny. That's a good moment. And yeah, the reaction to the team when they enter in the TARDIS is a nice little throwback to Ian and Barbara and Susan from the old classic season. I'll talk about the TARDIS interior later in this review, because I think I should get all this stuff out of the way first before I talk about the one thing everyone talks about in this episode. But yeah, we'll get back to that later. The other characters do okay. Ryan, I think, was slowing down a little bit, but he did have his moments. I mean, standout moment for me is when he just picked up the gun and he started to just running out onto the landscape, just screaming as he's taking down the soldiers, as he called it, Call of Duty. And then when they start coming back up, he literally just runs back screaming. I'm not gonna lie, I've seen people, and I think I'm one of those people that would do the exact same thing, but I wish the moment was a bit longer, just to really just to see him all right, just running around firing a gun everywhere. But yeah, that was pretty funny. That was nice. Yasmin, still least interesting character in the team, but honestly, I think she's really stepping up a little bit right now. I mean, I'm interested to see how her relationship with Ryan is going to be. But I think the standout moment for me is when she's talking to Armstrong, the female competitor. Almost like a policeman talking to a victim or interviewing someone in a crisis. Again, I really wish that moment was expanded a little more. Speaking of Armstrong, let's talk about the two characters, Esper and Armstrong. I think that's their names. Feel free to leave a comment below if I've got them wrong. But okay, now let's talk about these characters. We got Armstrong, who's competing to win to save her family from a situation, whilst Esper is just competing because he wants to stay alive. Those are both interesting characters in my opinion, and they both have potential to carry a good story arc. Aside from the talk whilst they're walking across the desert, and when they actually, big shock, they decide to win the game together. I didn't feel like they have learned anything. I didn't feel like they had to work together in this episode, or they decided to work together to escape. If the entire episode was to focus on those two coming to grips that it turns out they have to work together to survive, I think it would have really worked. But honestly, the episode really didn't really develop their relationship a lot more in my opinion. However, I do see they do have chemistry together. They do seem like they have known each other for a while. Sean Dooley's character Esper, he said he was raised not to trust anyone, which is understandable. But then he mentioned how his mum's when he said his mum will catch him, but she moved out of the way, and he learned that you can never trust anyone in his life. Either that, or perhaps that his mum was an absolutely cruel woman. And the moment the doctor mentions she was wrong, we are stronger together, which I will admit, it was nice, but it was nice that the two decide to win the game together. But even that felt a little out of place. I didn't really feel that they have learned anything from what has happened in this episode. There are some nice moments, like I like how they were walking about, that Sean Dooley's character just discusses how he made his own cigar, which which then came into the episode later on in the episode. That was a nice touch, and I was literally looking at him thinking, okay, that's a real person there, even though throughout the episode it's just a one-dimensional character. But at least we get like a one realistic acting performance in one scene. I also like how, even though the TARDIS isn't around anymore, they managed to implant some translator pods on the back of their neck so that they can understand what they're saying. That's a nice touch. The location looks pretty nice. The episode has really good special effects. I mean, particularly for the ship. When the ship comes into hyperdrive, and then we get this like one long take between the Doctor and Esper in the cockpit. Even though, in my opinion, they could have at least managed to show what the planet looks like from the window. You could have managed to save enough money to just put like just an image on the window to show that the planet they're coming across, rather than just spend 10 minutes on the person's face without actually showing us. That's another problem with this episode. They don't show us a lot of key points. For example, the Doctor discovers from the sniper robots, which it's a nice design, even though it's a bit generic. And the next minute, she knows how to stop them, which I get. It's what the Doctor does. But at the same time, I was asking myself, how do you know that? Or when Graham spots the scorch marks on the wall and they just shrug it off. However, I did like Graham's open arm reaction, as if to say, doesn't that mean anything bad is going to happen to you guys? No, okay. Again, you could have cut that bit out and you wouldn't remember anything from that scene. Or again, in the same scene, the Doctor spots a door which she unlocks, which she recognizes as a locked door for information. They could have at least spared a little bit of budget to show the actual door, rather than just pretend there's a door on the side, which clearly there isn't a door. But come on, guys, you could have been better. And okay, you know that shot we saw in the trailer of the Doctor running down the corridors with sparks out of place as a closing door? Do you remember that? Okay, first time watching it, I was asking myself, how did she get there? Where did the others go? And why was it there? I mean, you could have removed it from the episode, or you could have moved that scene somewhere else in the edit, or you can just go straight to the huge sewer corridor where Jodie comes out and she runs down the corridor, and it'll be fine. Oh, I know why it's there. It's just there because it was in the trailer. Well, that's a shame. But yeah, one of the main problems in this episode is the editing. Either some stuff needed to be improved a little more, or completely pointless. And honestly, there are a couple of completely pointless moments in the episode, like don't touch the water, otherwise you'll die, or the cloak creatures, wherever they are. And yeah, I get it. Those cloak monsters were there to set up the series arc, even though they said there isn't going to be one, but does it fit into the plot of the episode? No. The entire scene with the floating cloaks in the air are just completely hilarious. I couldn't take that scene seriously because it looked like obviously nothing there on the scene. Just very, very uninterested, uninspiring, floaty CGI ribbons. I had a note from my friend Sam, and he said the episode started off pretty slow, but then it started to kick off, and the climax I thought was pretty good. Oh, come on. What did we just see? Just ribbons floating in the air, and they were easily destroyed by a cigar, which, by the way, how did that cigar work? I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they mentioned that you click your fingers, the cigar would light up, but how did that cigar manage to, I don't know, how did that cigar manage to create a huge explosion? Maybe it's something I missed out, but again, the episode didn't clarify it for me. A lot of people are saying that the villain, whatever his name is, played by Art Malak, I think that's his name, was completely weak. And yeah, he's pretty weak. He's a pretty useless but obvious generic one-dimensional character. I was just waiting for a scene where they find out where he's actually contacting them from, or whether or not he's actually manipulating or fixing the game himself. And then it turns out he's just a dull quiz master, which I'm fine that they don't go with the generic route. But why did he not care about bringing the Doctor and his friends with them? Seriously, there was no reason. He just left them on that planet, basically, probably to die. He's just a one-dimensional prick. However, I will say, the the scene where he actually talks about how the game works, it kind of reminded me of the Hunger Games. That's actually an interesting idea. You got a game where you've got these two people just to compete with each other to survive, and in return they get a ship so they can escape. That's an interesting idea. And you've got these sniper robots being obstacles in the game. But I will admit, I didn't understand the point of the shooting range unless you're going to use it. For example, I would have liked the team to take the sniper bots in a shooting range just so they can get past to the next part of the game. It just feels like the whole episode plays it like this. Show the surrounding, find a MacGuffin, then move along with no explanation or time to breathe. There was only one scene which I actually thought, I understand a lot more the second time I watched this episode, and that's the bit where they're reading this writing on the floor, and they mention that there's a moment where they mention how the planet has been under some problems with the water and atmosphere, whilst the Stenza, which I'm guessing is going to be the reoccurring villain of this series, attacked, so the population had no choice but to join them or die with the planet in doing so, but they also had to destroy what they created and what they were working on before the Stenza could steal it for themselves. If that's the case, then what's the point of setting up the game? I could be wrong, but God, how does this game work? It makes no sense. But I hope that Tim Shaw or the Stenza are not going to be the main villain for the show, because he, in my opinion, at least until the villain of this episode, is the least interesting villain of the series so far. I know running a show can be very hard, and I know you want to set something up for the series, but please just give us an episode where we can just have fun with the surrounding rather than just give us some hints or clues of what's going to happen later on in the series. I expected more from Chibnall. But wait, why am I talking about all this nonsense? You will want to know what my reaction is to the new TARDIS interior. Sorry, that sounds a bit harsh, but okay, I'm just gonna be honest. Okay, I like it. I like how they've combined elements of the 10th Doctor's wars mixed with the only good part of McGann's TARDIS, and they put them all together. Even though they pretty much leaked the TARDIS interiors before the series even began, and I really wish they didn't do that. I like the steampunk style walls on the floor, and I do like there's a mixture of orange, gold, and blue color, especially since I noticed the pattern projections on the wall. The console, in my opinion, looks half done, but that's probably because the episode didn't give us a proper moment to actually look at the console. It just kept jump cutting to different angles. The only complaint I have about this interior are the crystals. Now, don't get me wrong, the crystal on the console actually kind of worked. It's a nice little throwback to classic Rota from the classic seasons. And I actually like how they've used the crystals to be part of the only cool thing in McGann's TARDIS, but I'd like to know what they're for. The same can be said with the Crystal TARDIS. Those are some nice touches, but I'd like to know what they're for. However, I do like the hourglass element. I don't think we've seen that ever used before in the TARDIS interior. Maybe we might get a scene in the later episode where we can actually see what those parts of the TARDIS interior are for. Then I'd be okay. But altogether, the TARDIS, in my opinion, looks pretty nice. I'm all for it. So, after all of that, what did I think of the episode overall? This was a real tough one to review, as I had no idea what was going on. I was entirely hooked with the scenario of this episode, with the whole Hunger Games style event, and there were some one or two very good moments with the characters, but the episode was really not easy to follow halfway through. I think this is an episode that needed to be a little longer or have less content. Maybe if you cut out some of the scenes, we could have had more time to maybe develop the characters a lot more, or explore the planet a bit more, or, I don't know, give us a flowing narrative. I think I'm reaching to a point where Doctor Who episodes need to be almost 1 hour long. That will give us more time to get interested in the characters, our surroundings, and the idea of what this story is about to come across. Either it needed to be a game scenario where the characters learn to trust each other, or search for the ghost momentum / TARDIS. Pick one and do it. I think it's a racket. If you like this episode, more power to you, but I think it's a mess. I know I said the same things about episode 1, but to that episode's credit, it still managed to have a solid flowing narrative. This episode is much weaker across the board. The episode is unfocused, the storyline is weak, with weak one-dimensional characters aside from 1 or 2 good moments, and I am ashamed that viewers are finding it great because the ending just gives us a colourful visual stunning moment at the end. This happened with Rebel Flesh in Series 6, and it's happened again. It was better watching it the second time, but that didn't really help a lot. Not the best episode in my opinion, but after a run of Doctor Who shows where episode 2s do sometimes have the good moments, episodes like Smile, The Beast Below, The End of the World, weak stories, but come on, we had good second stories like Tooth and Claw, Fires of Pompeii, Day of the Moon. Yeah, I like Day of the Moon. Into the Dalek I thought was okay. Even The Witch's Familiar, in my opinion, was the better episode than The Magician's Apprentice in Series 9. Yeah, I said it. There was something very good in Series 9. But then again, after a run of Doctor Who shows where the second episodes do sometimes have their moments or not, am I really that surprised? I'm giving this episode 5 out of 10. Oh, this was tough. Be sure to leave a comment, like, and share this video, and if you have seen the episode, what did you think about it? If you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.